So hello everybody and welcome to this Edge Tools and Services update. I know that many of you are already working with a couple of the different applications within the Edge Tools family, but what I wanted to do today is make sure that you understand the full range of the products within that suite and also look at a typical workflow moving between those different applications, and also look at who those applications are targeted at and how they fit within that workflow process. So let's jump straight into have a look at the family here. If we cut back into the main screen, you'll see that we have a variety of products in here. I know that Edge Animate has been used with great enthusiasm by many of you since its early pre-release days, and also Edge Reflow is a popular program as well, which we released again as a preview pre-release application. We're going to look at Edge Animate in more detail, particularly a new feature that's come out with this release, which is the motion path feature, something that's been around, of course, in Flash for since the beginning of time of Flash, pretty much. So we're going to take a look at that and see what sort of potential that has. We've also got Edge Code, which is our web coding, writing and editing application. So from within here, you're able to edit and produce your JavaScript, your CSS, your HTML5, etc. We're going to take a quick look at that interface and some nice quick edit ability within there. You have Edge Inspect, which is the device application, which enables you to, from the Chrome browser, install a plugin for the Edge Inspect application. You also have the application installed on your desktop machine as well as on your different devices, and what that means is that you can then preview the content that's been shown within the Chrome browser on these different devices so that you can check that the content's reflowing correctly and as it should. We've also got some nice integration with Edge Reflow there as well, and I'll show you how to turn that on in a second. We've got Edge Web Fonts Services, which is a free service of live, active, artistic, beautiful fonts running from a super fast server. And we have, of course, the Typekit font families, which you're able to create Typekit kits and then integrate with your web solutions, and also, of course, PhoneGap build as well. So let's jump over into Photoshop, because within here I have a design for a website which has been shared with me by a client and the brief, and it's the wireframe for the horizontal iPad version of the design, which is also what we're going to use for our desktop design as well. You can see in here I've actually got some holding images. This is some holding images from an animation that's been created in Edge Animate, and we also have a couple of different layouts down the bottom here. We've got some columns here going on, which we will need to, of course, reflow and adapt in order to display correctly on smaller screen sizes, and that's really where reflow comes into play. So my design team have had access to this document, and then if I jump over into Edge Reflow, we can see what's been done so far with the layout changes. So let's just come down to view this a little bit smaller here. So now, because we're working from a large design size down to the smaller screen sizes, if I just click on this drop-down menu here, we're working at an orientation of maximum. If we were working from our phone design and building this design upwards, we would work from the minimum size up to the maximum size. So what we've got in here is all of the elements from the Photoshop design laid into place correctly in frames, in div tags, but the designer has been able to do this and not had to write the HTML and the CSS code in order to lay this out. Okay, and then what she's able to do then is to place different breakpoints along, and you can see them along here, which is the point at which the screen size changes and therefore the layout needs to be adapted. If we take a look, for example, at the navigation, which is down on the left-hand side here as a column currently, if we then come down to these smaller screen sizes, you can see it now jumps up to a horizontal layout across the top here. As we come down to our smaller phone size screens, we actually get a call out instead, which will launch a much bigger menu so that you can easily touch that on those kind of screens to navigate the page. Now, as we're working from the maximum down, any changes that we make in the layout will be affected in the smaller screen sizes as well, and in reverse when you're working from the minimum orientation up to the maximum. You can also see in here we've got some integration with web fonts. I can browse the typeface here in Edge Web Fonts, just as I would my desktop fonts. I can browse online. These are, as I mentioned before, artistic live fonts running directly from a superfast service, so it's independent of the device that the content's being viewed on, and therefore you're going to get that brand consistency. You can keep them active, they are searchable, they're doing all the right things for you. The other integration that we have, which is really nice, is Edge Inspect, and I mentioned this before. I just need to have my phone, my iPad, multiple devices, however many I want, that the Wi-Fi network can deal with, all connected on the same Wi-Fi network with the applications installed on them. And then when I turn this element on here, I'll be able to preview this design in those devices themselves, or on those devices rather. And that means that we can actually take a look at how the CSS is working without, again, having to build any pages, without having to publish any of the site, but we can actually see what's going on those devices. The other really nice thing with that is that from within the application, if I just open up this folder here, going to browse to my Creative Cloud folder over here. I've got a folder which is automatically syncing here to the Edge Inspect screenshots that I take. And what happens is you get a screenshot of the device itself from the device, just to check everything's how you want it. You can then share this with your client via the Creative Cloud, either in a folder sharing capacity when that functionality comes later on, or you can share it as a file, a URL link, etc. And you can get sign off from that. You can add comments to that file. You can get comments back from your client as well. The other thing that's produced is this text file here, which gives you details of the device resolution, etc. Let me just jump over into my Creative Cloud folder online, and we can just see that in action. So I've got here my Edge Inspect screenshots. There we go, if I just browse to that. And if I select this one, for example, here, I can then, as you see, as I mentioned, add a comment to it and then share this file. So that's the process that I would go through. Okay. So back into Edge Reflow. The other thing that I need to obviously do is, as a developer, then come in and make use of the work that this designer has done for me on these different layouts. And the way in which we can do this is to select the different elements that you're wanting to get the CSS code from, and I can either do that by clicking on them on individual items, or being very careful to click on the outside container div, which is represented by this outline, this box here, this container. The other way is to browse through this navigation menu here. So I can come to my nav items, which is this one here, and I can then open up this little menu here. And this gives me all of the CSS code that Reflow has generated about that item, okay, for all of these different breakpoints. And you can see this little clipboard here. That means you can just copy this straight as a developer to your clipboard, paste it into Edge code, into the relevant sections within your build. The other thing that you can do, which is useful, and particularly when we're looking at moving to much smaller screen sizes, is to actually, within the layout, of course, you can change the size and positioning of everything within this layout here. You can also choose whether things are a fixed size or if they are scalable by switching 2%, so you can have EMs or pixels there. You can choose the padding and the margins, etc. All of those things that you would expect to be able to choose. And then within the styling, you can change all of the color properties, the border radius, all of that sort of thing. You can add shadows, etc. So the other thing that you can do, along with changing all of those dimensions and margins and padding, all of that sort of thing in the properties, is you can choose your grid options within here. So as I move from a larger screen size down to the smaller, I can go, as you see, from a 12 down to 9, down to a 4-column layout. And as I pan down, you can see I'm actually moving my layout into being like one long column of contents, as opposed to these multiple columns and frames within the same section here. Okay, so let's jump over to Edge code, where my developer has been already extracting that CSS code that was produced within Edge Reflow and pasting it into this document here. I'm just going to jump over. This is the web page being previewed here. I'll come back to why this is highlighted in 1 second. So we can see the page comes down, it's looking all good, as it should do. And I'm just going to resize the page here, and we'll just see, yes, everything's reflowing correctly as I wanted it. So if we just take a little look at this element here, the reason this is highlighted is because within Edge code, I'm within the CSS section of this build. And because I've got this live preview active up here with the Chrome browser, any changes that I make within Edge code will automatically be reflected over here. And I've actually got this element here, the site links, selected here. And I've just done Command E on the keyboard in order to get this quick edit function to come up. And I can now color pick the CSS changes in a really nice way. I can also, of course, add in my various different numerical values for the color as well. So I can make some nice quick changes in addition to handwriting my code and see them instantly previewed there. So everything's looking good in there, but of course there's an animation that's due to go in this place here. This animation has been created in Edge Animate and published in order to sit into this web content. And I'm just going to show you the published content for the animation. Let me just browse to that. It's in my collaboration folder because I'm obviously sharing this with various agencies within and without and outside of my organization. So this is the final animation in here. So we can see I've got some nice rollovers going on. Let's just make this a little bit bigger. These are the top skateboarding locations in the country. Whoa, there's a skateboard coming across there. We've got some nice parallax motion happening as the mouse moves across the screen. And we've got some pop-ups and some links, all sorts of nice complex animation going on in there. So the code that was produced there is a combination of JavaScript. We've got some Edge includes in there, and we've also got the HTML and of course the image files as well, the image assets exported from there. I'm going to look at that when we take a look at this additional animation in 1 second. The other option is to produce the OAM file out of Edge Animate, and this is the file that you would create for your DPS publications and also to insert into Adobe Muse as well. And you would place that just like you would a video or an image file within those applications. So this is an additional animation that we've been working on, which has got some motion paths going on it. Look, there we go. There's the skateboard going down the page. It's following the tracks there. There's another one coming in, and that's also following some tracks. And down he goes and follows a weird wiggly motion path off into the distance. So I've been having quite a lot of fun making that animation, as you can see. This has actually got some quite big image assets in it, and quite a lot of symbols, motion paths, that sort of thing going on. So what you need to be aware of when you're creating these animations is to get that balance between this high quality, lots of information going on there, lots of triggers, actions, that sort of thing, and the smoothness of the animation. And that's really going to be a little bit down to to compromise, working out, you know, quality over performance, that sort of thing. And it's not really until you start building these animations that you're going to get a sense of that, and you might need to reduce the size and the resolution of some of the elements within that animation. So let's jump over to Edge Animate now and to that particular animation, and I will show you a couple of things within it. So this is the final version in here. I've got all sorts of different elements going on. I'm going to jump into the starting element here. And so I've got various different assets that I've imported into here, and I can do this by saying File Import, or I can drag and drop elements into the stage also. The assets that I've created have been made in a variety of different areas. Let's just close this Photoshop document here. This skateboard is actually a render that's come out of Cinema 4D Lite, which is now packaged with After Effects CC, which is really, really great. If any of you are familiar with it, it's obviously you know, a leading industry 3D program and has huge capabilities, even in its light form. It's really, really fantastic application. This is a render of a 3D object that I've taken out of there. I've then created some different hues to go over the logo here on the front of the board, and we're going to be making a symbol with those so that they can cycle through those different colours, so that I can show you how an animation can sit within another animation really easily. The other elements that I've got in here are these parallax elements, and what we're going to be doing is mixing between a kind of a more of a daytime look and sort of more of a dusky kind of feel. So I've got these two skyline images here. Let me just take off the foreground for a second there. So I've got this daytime skyline here, which has got a camera raw filter on it. Now this is a smart object in Photoshop with this filter applied, camera raw. Okay, brand new feature in Photoshop CC. And if I open it up, it's all non-destructive, so I can come in and I can re-edit any of these elements here. So you can see I've taken the highlights down and the whites down. I've lifted the shadows a little bit. This is actually a nighttime shot to start with, so I've just kind of tried to dull it down a little bit in that way. And then the nighttime version, all the lights are kind of gleaming and bright as they should be. So those are those elements. I've also got the middle ground, which has been lifted from a video image actually, and it's had several layers of trees blended over each other to fill the space where the skateboarder was. We've also got this front view here, and this is where the skateboard motion path is going to come down and hit this section here. And in order to create the tracks, what I've done is I have created some tracks within Adobe Illustrator. Now I've talked through some of these brushes in a previous seminar, so do take a look at that pre-recording as well. But basically all I've done is taken some elements, which I've got up here. This is a repeated path element. So I've taken this section here and I've also created some ends here, so very, very simple vector shapes, which I have dragged into form this brush over here. And I literally just take this element here, if I can get hold of it. Oh, I've locked the layers. Let me just unlock those 1 second. So just come down and unlock everything. Has that got it yet? No, not yet. There we go. There we go. So I literally, if I just open up my brushes panel here, I can take this. I know this will repeat exactly correctly, so I'm going to drop that in there, and I just choose a pattern brush there. And you can see here I've got my pattern. I can choose how the corners butt in from the automatically generated options that Illustrator has given me, the inside corner as well. I can also choose the start and the end, because I have these little swatches available to me from my swatches panel, so I can select anything from my swatches panel in order to create those. And what that means is when I apply this to a path, let's just come down, excuse me, spinning down the page quickly like that. So I've got this path, and I've checked with the perspective of the skateboard already that that's going to work. I can literally just select these lines that I've created and drawn and apply that to them. I can then change the scaling of this from within the brush options, and also up here within the stroke weight I can change the colour, all of that kind of thing. So I've exported those lines, and here they are. Here's the version that I've taken into Edge Animate. And let's actually create some animation now, shall we, after talking about it for so long. Here we go. So I'm going to jump over here. The first thing I'm going to do is take this element here and turn it into a symbol. So like I say, this animation that happens within the animation. And in order to do that, these are all my different hues overlays that you can see here. And in order to do that, all I need to do is select these elements. And that's the skateboard base there. I right click or command click and convert to symbol. And then I can name it colour. Oops, sorry. Can't have some spaces in there. Let's just call it skateboard. And symbol. There we go. Get time to catch up. And instantly I've got now this little symbol here. So let's double click on that, and from within that symbol now we can animate these elements. There it is, appearing here. So the first thing I'm going to do is just take down the opacity. Let's expand my timeline out a little bit. I want it to cycle fairly quickly, so I want this element here on the top to go from full opacity, so I'll add a keyframe in there. And I want it to come down to, it might be very speedy. Let's see how it looks. Let's do it up to here actually, 0.250. And let's take this down to 0. There we go. So that's now going to fade to reveal the colour underneath. What I can do now is to copy this animation here just by selecting the bar along the top. If I bring it to this point here and select the layer below, I can paste that onto there. And equally, I can continue as I go down, and we'll get these change in colour hues happening through the animation. There we go. And what I need it to do is to loop through this through this symbol as it is animated within the main timeline. And in order to do that, I can simply just add in a little action on the timeline here, and I can just say at this point play 0 and close that down, and that means it'll just play from the start of the timeline. Let's have a little look through there. It's very speedy. There we go. So now let's jump out into the stage, and we can see here I've got the symbol now in place, and it's got an animation in there, and I've got some playback options at this point. There it is, it's playing automatically, but we don't actually want it to play until the animation begins, so we're just going to say stop at this point, and I think we'll start the animation just about here. And I'm going to set it to play from this point in the timeline. So now, in order for the symbol to be not visible until the point at which we want it to start animating, I've got this option here to turn it off. So I'm just going to add that in there, and then at this point here, it's going to play here. Let's just make sure it's on at this point. Good, so we're happy with that. We also need to animate this symbol, of course, and we want it to be able to follow this motion path along here and shoot off the side of the stage. So let me just maximize my screen area here so we've got the most visible. By the way, in this latest version you've got the ability to scale down to smaller than 50%, which is really useful, particularly if you're working just on one screen like this and you need up all of your different menu panels, etc. So I'm going to animate it, but I'm going to use an XY motion path instead of XY motion. Okay, and I've got the option to auto orientate as well, and what this means is that as the object moves along the line, the curve of the motion path, it will rotate according to the direction the motion path moves in, rather than just being a fixed position, kind of following it in a more of a rigid fashion. And that's absolutely what I want to do. So I'm going to click OK on that. I'm also going to need to rotate it when I've created my motion path at the top end to make sure it's pointing in the right direction to start with. So let's just add in a keyframe here. I'm going to put in my XY position, and I'm going to add another one in. Let's come through. Scale this back a little bit. Don't want to make it too fast. Say 3 seconds, see how that is. That's the final motion path keyframe in there. And I'm just going to drag this out and say we want it to shoot off. In fact, let's take it right over here. There we go. And you can see I've now got this arrow being created from the front, from the start of the animation through to the final position. Just going to come back here. I actually want it to start off screen over here. So let's pull it up there. And I want it to, as you know, curve down to hit the base here, come across and follow this line. So all I need to do now is hover over the motion path line, add in a point, and then drag that down. And I can use these Bezier curves in order to align things as well. I'm going to put in another fixed point at that point because I know I want it to absolutely hit that position there. Let's just straighten that out a little bit. And let's add in another one at this point. And of course I can curve this a little more to follow this line. Now you can spend some time tweaking this. I'm not going to spend forever on it now, but you can see you've got quite nice manipulation, control over this path here. As I mentioned, we need to be able to have this following the line of the motion path. So let's add in some rotation here. I think that should be along the right lines. And we've got it auto orientating, yes, so that should work okay. So I just bring my got brilliant control there of my mouse, excuse the clunkiness, right, and let's just play that. There we go, cycling through. And if we do command return, we can preview this in the browser. There we go. Woo! These elements here, by the way, are other objects, symbols within the animation that I have left visible so far because we've got some work to do them. Yeah, let's just see that one more time. There we go. Brilliant. I can also do some scaling, of course, on that element so that it fits with the perspective that I want it to. So that's some motion paths within there. The other thing that I can do is, obviously, I need these tracks to appear not until the skateboard actually hits the platform and moves across the platform, and we want to be able to wipe those in, and we do that using the clipping functionality. So let's just take a look at the foreground here. I've put in a starting point for my clipping, and this is just down here in my clip option, and I have put in an ending point, okay. And we want to make sure that the animation runs in time with the movement of the skateboard. So what I'm first going to do is just clip the right hand side in to the edge of that track itself. There we go. And that timing should work correctly now. So that's the final finishing point with it all revealed. At the start, of course, we don't want it all revealed. So let's just crop this one in even more this time. Bear with me, I've not got a lot of space to drag the mouse down at this side of the screen here. There we go. So I'm going to crop it to the middle of these front wheels here, about there. And if we pull across in the animation now, you can see those tracks are appearing in sync brilliantly with the skateboard as it moves across. Okay, so that's just a nice way to use some of the brushes features within Illustrator and your motion path in here. Let me jump over now into this second version of the animation, because I just want to show you how the parallax effect was created. So what we've got here is, as you saw, we've got the foreground elements of the shot. We've got the middle ground elements of the shot. We've got the background distance elements in the shot. And in order to create this depth of field, we've used something which is fairly new in this release. Let's come on to the foreground, there we are, front elements here. And you can see along this bottom section here, if we just take a look, we've got the blurring in action. So that comes out of focus and then back into focus again. And this blur filter is just a keyframe animation, as with all the other elements, and that is under filters here and blur. So we're doing the reverse to the more distant objects in the backgrounds. The sky itself is just a rectangle with a gradient filter applied to it. You can see the gradient filter up here, and this is actually moving between two different gradient colours. This is literally just drawn within Edge Animate using this box here, and then having this filter applied to it. Okay, great. So once we've created our animation, I've mentioned obviously that we need to be able to publish this into the format that we need it, whether that's to go within a responsive website, or to go within a DPS publication, or to go within Adobe Muse also. I just come up to my publish settings up here. I've got three different options. I've got the web publishing setting, I've got the animate deployment package, which is that single OAM file that we saw earlier in the folder structure, and we've also got the iBooks and OSX format as well. So I can choose my target directory there. I can then save those settings and I can publish them. I can choose to host files in different ways, produce static HTML as well within my web animate options. So there we go. Then I can share these assets again in the way that I did with the Edge Inspect screen grabs. I can share these assets via the Creative Cloud with my clients. I can insert them into my Muse documents. I can build them into the website. I can publish and deliver all of the fantastic dynamic content that I want to. So hopefully this session's been useful to you to make it clear as to how these products might fit together. Hopefully you can see ways in which you'll be able to use them in your existing workflows and get the most out of them. We'll be doing more detailed sessions, of course, as new features come along. There's still very early days for some of the products. Edge Reflow, for example, has only been around since February. But we've got some really exciting integration coming with that in Photoshop. We've shown some sneak peeks of that at Adobe Max already, and you're going to be able to, at some point in the future, and hopefully soon because we love the feature, be able to create your reflow build directly from Photoshop. Okay, so that's really joining up those workflows nicely. So we want you to contribute, we want you to get involved and give us your feedback on these products. You know, we've got lots of ways to get involved in our open source projects. I'm just going to open up finally one URL here, which is html.adobe.com. And if you're keen to keep abreast of everything that we're doing within these products themselves, and then also our open source products and the contributions which are significant that we're making towards the web platform, you can do that from all within this space. So any new details about new features are available on the Edge Tools and Services. We've got all of them listed here with some outlines, learning more about the different products. the web platform here. This will take you through all of the things we're doing to develop CSS styling and get new standards agreed and supported across different browsers. And we've got an overview of the work that we're doing within that area. And also our open source projects, as I mentioned, we have multiple projects that you can get involved in and contribute to. So do take a look at this section as well, particularly if you're a developer. That will be really of interest to you. So I hope that's been useful to you. It's been great to have you on board for the seminar. Do come back again soon. I'm going to be keeping updates going on my Twitter handle as well, which is Creative Sneaks. So do join me on there. Post any questions that you have about the Edge tools and services and any of the other products relating to the Creative Cloud, and I'll do my very best to respond to you. And I hope to see you again next time.